welcome to Who is My Advisor and What Can They Do for Me? I am your co-moderator along with Dr. Amber Anderson. We will be asking the questions. We have 4 advisors from Wichita State University, and at this time, I will ask each of them to introduce themselves. And since Erin is first on my screen, Erin, I will let you go.
Yes.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. I'm Erin Shields. I'm the Assistant Director in the College of Health Professions Advising Center, and I work closely with our health professions pre-majors.
Thank you, Erin. Jacqueline, you're next on my screen.
Hi, I'm Jacqueline Johnston. I am the Director of Online Advising and the advisor for fully online majors in the college, the Fairmount College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. And I've been advising at Wichita State for 11 years.
Oh, all right. Nancy Kriebel. Did I say that right? Did I pronounce your last name correctly?
Yeah, Crable rhymes with table.
Crable.
That's what I tell folks. So
Crable,
you did
yeah.
good. Table.
All right. I got
Yep.
close.
Yes, thank you, Dr. O'Neill. I am Nancy Crable. I am the Assistant Director of the Liberal Arts and Sciences Advising Center. Thanks so much for having me.
Of course, thank you for being here. And last but certainly not least, Emily.
Hi, everyone. I'm Emily Stevens. I'm the Director of Advising for the College of Applied Studies, soon to be the College of Education next year. So I am happy to be here.
The first question is, talk to us about your experiences in interacting with an academic advisor when you were an undergraduate student at your alma mater. What were the positive experiences? And if you had any, what were the not so positive experiences?
So I think I may be turning this over to Jacqueline very quickly because we did not have professional academic advisors at the school I went to. I did not have that opportunity, which actually might be part of the reason why I'm in this, because I did not have a me when I was in college, and I'm glad that our students do.
Similar to Erin, we did have advising at my institution, but there was a freshman, sophomore advising center, and then your junior and senior years, you were advised by a faculty advisor. And I was in a special academic program to where I was assigned a faculty advisor as a freshman. It was supposed to be a benefit. However, the first time I emailed my advisor to say, hey, can we meet and talk about what I want to do next semester? They pretty much said, who are you and how did you get my email address? I never met with that person in person. They were friendly via email after that, but I never got to experience an academic advisor. So similar to Erin, kind of figured it out on my own and wanted to, I think it's fun to figure out a schedule. I literally highlighted my undergraduate catalog because yes, we still printed them back then. And I just had so much fun doing it. And then once I got into working in higher education, I realized how valuable an academic advisor can be. So I decided to move that way myself.
So I am an alum of Wichita State University, 2-time alum. Woo woo. And I can remember my freshman year seeing my academic advisor. Shout out to Phil Ladwig, who was my advisor. And I remember thinking, okay, this is different. Phil is not my instructor like I'm used to seeing in my high school classes, but he's also not like my high school counselor either. Like this is a new type of person in a totally new setting. And that was just eye-opening for me to have someone that could connect with me one-on-one, totally outside of that classroom space, that was there to help me with my schedule, but on a larger scale, there to help me make meaning of my college experience. So nothing but good things to say about Phil. I was really lucky to have him as my advisor when I was an undergrad.
So my experience is a little different. I actually started at a community college, so I was a first generation transfer student. I was also a military brat, so I moved around a lot. I didn't really make a lot of connections. I moved here to Kansas when I was in 8th grade, so that was a terrible time to make new friends. So I was very scared. My mother did not know. My dad was TDY when I was transitioning from being a senior to college. My mother had no experience with college at any point. So I walked by myself through this process. So when actually the advising part was the positive experience. Once I got to an advisor, his name is Kendall Bernsdorf. He's actually still at Butler Community College to this day. He was so welcoming. He took a lot of barriers down. I knew nothing. I was a great student. That's all I knew. But everything else up to that point was very nerve-wracking. I walked in not knowing anything, and they said, sign this sheet, sign in. I didn't know what I hoped that I signed the right sheet because there's 3 of them. I had no idea what I was doing, but as soon as I walked through that door, I latched onto him. I still see him at events because I go to Butler Community College now and work with him as a collaborator. And it's just great to see, he's still doing what he's doing. And so I know community college advising is very different, but I started there as a student and transferred to a university. But that was a great experience. But there were some navigation issues starting out.
So, ladies, what are some common misconceptions students have about the role of an academic advisor, and how do you go about overcoming those misconceptions in the work that you do every day?
So I think I'm going to steal with probably the most common misconception is that students, that our only role is to help with getting students registered. Because I think there are some places where the academic advisor's role is advertised primarily as go see your advisor to register, or the advisors actually register the students and the students never register themselves. And so I think there is a misconception that that's all we're here for, when really we are here for so much more, and students see us all times throughout the calendar year. Not just when registration is open, and they come and see us for primarily academic reasons, but also non-academic reasons when they don't know where else to go. And so I think one of the things that I like to squash right out the gate is we're not just here for registration. We are here to support the whole student, registration and more.
I'm not too sure I have much to add on beyond that, other than as an online advisor. I think it's probably even more perceived that way, that we're just there to build the schedule because students can't stop by our offices between classes or things like that. So building a relationship with students is very, very important to me. Before I ever talk about classes with a student, I tell them about who I am, as well as want to get to know them outside of class and what their goals are and what their needs are. Emily knows that I'm not a salesperson. I'm not here to sell you on Wichita State or a particular class. I'm here to find out what interests you and how we can get you to meet your goals.
So just to piggyback off of what Erin and Jacqueline said, I think a misconception is that the conversations we have with students are just solely tied to academics and to their schedule and to their degree path here. We really do, as Jacqueline said, strive to get to know students as whole people. We know that most students, especially that returning adult and online learner populations, have a lot of responsibilities. You all wear many hats. And so we care about all of it. What else do you have going on in your day besides your classes? And how might that inform how we go about supporting you? So I think that's part of the work we do to counter those misconceptions that we see you just as a student. That's a part of who you are. A lot of that is just getting to have those personal connections and build that rapport over time.
I hate to say piggyback again, but just to piggyback on what Nancy and everyone was saying, that probably a misconception that I find is that they think I advise for everything. And so sometimes they come in thinking, I have all the questions for financial aid. I have all the questions of VA benefits. I have all or not questions, but answers. And so I kind of like that in a way, because I think we built that relationship where they can come to me for everything, and we make those connections together. And I think a way around some of that misconception is I educate or try to educate them on how my connection is with that office, what my connection is, especially with financial aid. Hey, if you ever have to do a SAP appeal form, if you're over credit hours, a lot of our transfer students that come in, especially for the teacher apprentice program, have exorbitant amount of hours. So typically if they're seeking aid, they're already going to be over that allotted success rate. So I kind of try to talk about that and our process and our connection with those offices. So I don't really hate that that's a misconception, because I can try to use the time I have with that student because they feel comfortable enough to come to me about getting into a student organization. And I'm like, let's navigate that together, because I really enjoy that relationship. So misconception, yes, but I do actually enjoy that misconception because I can utilize that to build that, continue building that relationship.
Thank you, Emily. You just brought up, oh, Jacqueline, you want to say something? Go ahead.
I wanted to add one more thing that
Sure.
another misconception is that we're going to tell you exactly what to enroll in every time. We're going to give you your options, but it's ultimately up to you. It's your education, not ours.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Also, to what Emily was saying, I feel like that's kind of my job too. But as I think about it, aren't we all at Wichita State making those connections? And because I always say, even though, I came in 02 as a student and I basically just stayed there this whole time, there are still questions to this day I don't know the answers to, but I know where to get the answer. And so I think that's a lot what advisors do. And Jacqueline, thank you so much for pointing that out, because as many of you know, I'm big on andragogy, which is that adult learning theory. And that is saying, you know what, these are your choices. You're a responsible adult. You can do this, and we want you to pick the best schedule for you. And our advising team is just fabulous. So thank you all. I know that Stacy, I had told you earlier, if you had a question to go ahead and type it in, but if you have a thought, if you want to say something, raise your hand or something, and we're more than happy to answer these questions, because this will be recorded and put on our website. So something, if you're having a question, it might be a question another student is having. So with that said, this is one of my favorite questions, and we may have to take more than 30 seconds to answer it, and I'd be okay with that. What unique strengths do online and adult learners bring to the academic environment?
Yeah, I had probably 4 bullet points for this, and I actually don't work with online students. My populations are not online, and so the adult learners I've worked with have this, like, a lot of the times your experiences in the world have helped you figure out how to navigate convoluted systems. You definitely have different barriers as an adult learner, but these difficult, frustrating systems that really can deter a first-time freshman from continuing. A lot of times y'all are like, I got this, like, I had to deal with the DMV, or I've bought a house, and like, you've done these things in life that make you look at obstacles differently, which I think brings a lot of resilience. And the younger students see that resilience and can learn from it. And I think that is something that is really cool about what adult learners bring to this environment here at Wichita State and at any institution.
I think the biggest strength that I see is intrinsic motivation, whether that's because a student is returning to classes after a very long time, or even a brand new online student. They have to have that motivation to sit down and work on a class themselves. I mean, in college, let's face it, no one's saying you have to be in class at 9:30 every morning. But if you're not doing that as an online student or an adult learner and forcing yourself to sit down, work on your classes between work, while your kids are napping, after work, it's really, really incredible to me that there is so much motivation built up in the student to do something and finish, that they are having to put this on their schedule themselves and get it done. It's really impressive.
So for Stacy and then any learners that may be watching this in the future, I just want to say, online and adult learners, you amaze me. You guys are awesome. you are resilient, you are persistent, you are good at advocating for yourself, and you make everything around you better. I know when I talk particularly to that returning adult population, some of them think, oh goodness, am I going to be the oldest person in the class? And am I going to fit in? What are my classmates going to think of me? And it makes things better for younger students. To Erin's point, I remember when I was an undergrad at Wichita State many, many moons ago, and I took a political science class, and it talked about the role of the US president. And so we basically each week talked about a different US president. And we had a returning adult in the class who said, I was alive when Roosevelt was president, and so their insight and their lived experience made that class so much better for me. So I just want online and returning adult learners to know that you are valued and you have a place here, and you make Wichita State and every institution where you're at better.
I have to go after that. Okay. Thanks, Nancy. I mean, great comments. I think the only thing to add, because there's some that I marked off of my list that I definitely was going to say, along with motivation, I guess mine was going to be perseverance, because there's so many things that the adult students, whether online or on campus, I mean, they're doing this on top of everything else, and they have a lot of stressors that normally would make them stop or completely just quit, whether that be anything in the home, work, anything like that. And a lot of the students I've worked with in the past are also working on top of that and have to work, and getting some of that stress from their districts and their principals to work more so they can become teachers. And so where they're also trying to tackle that on top of coming home to 4 kids and having to make dinner and all the other things. Along with what Nancy said, adult students are super valued. So I'm just going to share a short example. My father, I talked about, he was in the military. He actually came here to Wichita State in the secondary ed history government. He retired from the military after many, many years. And his identity was military. That's all he thought his value was. And so he reached a point where he didn't know what to do, but he knew he loved making a difference. And he came here so nervous because, I mean, he's an old man, and he came to a traditional program that had incoming freshmen usually only in the program, and sitting down. But I have students finding out that he was my father coming in, talking to me about, I just loved some of the insights. He helped me understand just different things, making connections about how to go and talk to someone in the bank, what do some of these things mean? And maybe it's not program specific, but just very world experience. And I think that's what we're on this planet to do, is make those connections overall. And I love seeing that. So I think there's so much value in adult students, whether they're in a traditional program or not. So again, congrats to those hard workers, and continue doing what you're doing.
And shout out to Mr. Curtis, Emily's dad. He is awesome. I haven't ever had him as an instructor, but even I know of him. He has an excellent reputation in the community.
I always joke he's going to die in that classroom. If he doesn't come home, we know where he is, because he stays there and he gives to that community. He works in a Title I school. I go to so many quinceañeras. I don't even know these people, but I know them because they love him like a father. And it just shows that if we didn't do our jobs, because he talks about advising and how that made an impact in him feeling welcome as an old gray-haired man, it really made an impact. And you can see if he didn't go through that, he wouldn't be making an impact in those students' lives. So,
okay. As an academic advisor, how do you help online and adult learners find their place and feel comfortable in the college environment, whether it's on campus or online?
So in my experience working with like on-campus adult learners, one of the things that's really resonated with students, especially since they have limited time because of outside of college commitments, is getting connected with at least one organization that's professionally, oh my gosh, associated. So like our, oh my gosh, health, is it HOSA, and our organization for future speech language pathologists, something that is career-minded that allows them to make those connections on campus without feeling like it's social hour or something that like, why am I here? I could be doing something else at my house, or and so something that really feels like they're connecting, but that makes sense for the reasons they're here.
Yeah, making those connections and feeling comfortable in the college environment can be really, really difficult for online students because there isn't a physical connection to the campus. So, as I said, whenever I meet with a new student, one of the first things that I do is ask them about their life outside of class. I actually keep a sheet of paper on every single one of my students that I reference when I meet with them again later. I say, hey, Amber, how are those kittens doing? Are they getting big? So that they know that I don't just think of them as a number, the next person on my list to get registered for classes, that I know that they're a real person as well. And then also trying uh, to figure out classes that might appeal to their individual interests. I have some of my that are also interested in working with victims. And so there are actually criminal justice classes that are very closely aligned with that. So helping pick classes that I know of that exist that they may never even have looked into is another way. Also, we have our online learning student organization in Blackboard. So in addition to your classes in Blackboard, there's an organization and it has information. We put in all of our fully online students into that organization, and it has information about their programs, how to contact us, things along those lines. But it also includes some of our affinity groups, like we have students who are parents and a first generation online and adult learners group that Pam and Noelle and Amber are really involved with. And so it helps students to make connections even at a distance.
And I guess to that, what I would add is that connection takes time, and it's going to look different for every student. And it's something that you have to kind of invest in, but know that it doesn't have to be a huge investment of time. Little things can forge connections, just the smallest things, whether it's in an online or a physical learning environment. There are little things that will help you feel connected as an online or an adult learner, or both, if you're in both of those categories. And the other thing I try to do with students and the conversations that I have with them is to normalize their feelings. Everyone at some point in their college journey has felt out of place. What if I don't fit in? What if I don't meet people? So know that that's a common feeling, and that because other people are feeling it, it's something that sometimes people can bond over. That sometimes when you're the odd duck out, you just need to find your other ducks, and we will help you do that.
I hate going last, guys. You guys are touching on everything I'm talking about. Okay, so to find something different, I think I'm going to go on the other side of feeling comfortable as an adult or an online student, and that's when everything is 8 to 5, and we have students that work within that whole window of time. And I remember so many times I had students stressing about, well, the registrar's office closes at this time, and I only have this amount of time, and they're saying I need to bring this form in physically, and there's so many barriers to, and it's adding stressors to them. So to help them feel comfortable, I mean, I know, and I'm not even going to say just me, OAL Advising, we do so much in the background to try to make sure our students have the least amount of barriers. I know Jacqueline, shout out to her, she always advocates to get as many online sections specifically for those students, because I mean, everyone enrolls in them and then they fill up and now they don't have anything and they're stressing out about, I'm not going to be able to graduate. And so we try to do so many things on the background to help that process be smoother, because again, they have a short window of time, especially if they're working, to get all the stuff done for departments that close at 5 o'clock. And that is strict on some departments, very strict. And so I do know, and I know I'm not the only one, especially with working adults, there's been after hour appointments, there's been early morning appointments, there's been, I mean, even weekend type of events to just get enrolled, because sometimes it is transactional, but they don't have even a split second to do that. And sometimes they're trying to do it on their lunch. And I said, go to lunch, have a mental break for yourself, eat your food. Do not think about registration. We will get it done. Go eat, have that break for you, because they're trying to do this on top of so many different things. And I think at least not the engagement and connection part, because you guys nailed it talking about that, but just some other things that might make this journey just a little bit more comfortable, because everything is 8 to 5. And sometimes that's a stretch to come home, try to, oh, where was that form in that email? They needed me to send it by this time, and now it's 4:59. And so I guess that's what I would add to that, is just, I think advising does a very good job advocating when the students don't even see us advocating, trying to make that easier for them.
Awesome. Thank you, Emily. You know what? You brought up a good point too. We're going to start this next question. I'm going to let you answer it first. Then we'll go Nancy, then Jacqueline, then Erin. We all right with that? All right. So we are on question number 5. What are some common challenges our students face when returning to school, and how do you help them overcome these?
Okay, my first one was routines. They don't have a routine. They have no idea how to take their school and embed it into their lives currently. So there has been times where we have to split up the appointment, and we're solely looking at, okay, we're going to be full time. So what does that look like, especially if it's online, especially with if it's 8 weeks, if it's not, really looking at what would that routine look like. You said you have X amount of things going on, really breaking down week to week. A lot of them have planners and they actively use those, which is great, but sometimes they plan that out sometimes differently than maybe what would align with a class. So that's the first thing I would say is a challenge, is setting a routine that aligns with the classes that they're taking, along with what job or family things that are pulling your attention, because there are many students that come straight from community colleges or not, and they feel that they can get everything done on the weekend, and that just burns them out. Their kids are doing all these things on the weekend, and they're like, no, I can't participate because I have to sit here and get this done. And so really looking at, it's really not that complicated to try to get things done little bits at a time. So breaking down, we've even done, are you a morning person or a night person? And there was one student that started waking up at like 4:30, and she loved it because she said, my kids are still asleep. I'm a morning person. I got my coffee. It was quiet. I actually got uninterrupted time before I went to work, and I felt so much better. And so it's sometimes just as easy as, when are you working on your things? I had a student that was doing her homework on the couch and fell asleep all the time. And so he literally talked about, make sure you have a workspace. Make sure you're sitting comfortably to where you can efficiently work. So just setting those routines to get them ready to start classes.
Yeah, I think in tandem to that, something that we see with online and returning adult students is they often bring with them experience from totally different fields. So Emily brought up, we see students in these categories that have been in the military. We see people who have been laid off after working in a profession for decades. And sometimes it can be really demoralizing to feel like you are starting over square one, and that you're A, never going to graduate, and B, that prior experience doesn't really amount to anything. And to that, I will briefly say 2 things. One of the things that we can sometimes support some of our learners with is something called credit for prior learning. So you may have a life experience that is very similar to a course that we offer credit for. So you might be surprised. There may be some of that life experience that you can get credit for. And even outside of that, the life experience that you bring with you, college credit or not, is so invaluable. And I know we touched on that earlier, the resilience, the perseverance. So I won't go too deep with that. But the other thing is this notion of, I'm never going to get there. I have so far to go. And that's where we can really be instrumental as your academic advisors, is figuring out what your goals are, what's a reasonable pace, what might the pace look like if you're going part-time, full-time, taking classes in the summer, not taking summer classes. And sometimes we have like 3 or 4 versions of a grad plan. Here's what it would look like if you went full-time. Here's part-time. Here's, option C, D, E, F, G. So know that we want to partner with you on that and help you bring that goal to fruition.
I think there are 2 challenges that I kind of see this going. One, the biggest ones is differences in jargon. Higher education has its own language, and sometimes it can be really difficult to decipher or translate. So having an advisor to explain to you what different terminology means. I know Emily brought up a SAP appeal earlier. What is a SAP appeal? Well, if you are not meeting satisfactory academic progress for financial aid, your financial aid is first put on probation and then suspended. And unfortunately, because of the wording, a lot of times students don't know anything is a problem until they are already on that suspension. And then your academic advisor can help you create an academic plan to appeal that suspension and actually get your financial aid reinstated for that semester, showing that you're doing great. But there are a couple of different reasons that due to GPA or too many hours. I get a lot of students that are transferring in from multiple institutions, so they have too many hours for their degree. But I can say, hey, this student is on track to actually graduate next semester. So could you please reinstate their aid so that they can continue with that? But things like SAP appeal, bursar, senior form, senior check, your degree audit, explaining what each of these things means and showing students how to access and use them is a really big one. And then on the other side of the coin, I also want to point out that a big challenge for online and adult learners is realistic expectations. I have students that will come in my office and be like, I have been going to 4 different institutions. What is my fastest path to graduation? And can I graduate at the end of this semester? And I have to remind students that, like, it has maybe been a minute since you've been doing this. So is it the best idea to try to jump in and be a full-time student while you're also a full-time employee and a full-time parent and a full-time caregiver to your aging parents? Things along those lines. I tell my students all the time that I'd rather you take your time and be successful rather than have to go back and repeat those things later, spending more of your time and money. So let's figure out what a realistic plan is for you to be successful along the way. All of my prospective students see my email signature it's a Confucius quote that says, it doesn't matter how long it takes you as long as you do not stop. So I want to be there to help support you along the way and get you there successfully whenever that is.
I know we've already touched on this a lot, so this question might be a repeat, but what advice would you give to our online and adult learners who feel intimidated or out of place?
I think this is one that I honestly struggle with, because I feel like I have to already have a rapport with the student for them to really take, that sort of advice to heart, because it is such a, I mean, it's an emotional thing to feel like you don't belong, and it's hard to open up to someone who you've just met about those feelings of, vulnerability. But one of the things that I feel like has resonated with some of my adult learners in the type of programs we have. So our programs can be science heavy, and have competitive application processes. And so just ensuring students that this is difficult, but you can do it. You belong here. Your experiences and who you are is valued here, and you are accomplishing the same things that someone, younger than you who did things differently. You're still doing the same things. You still have the same goals. And it's okay to feel what you feel, but know that, it's temporary, because you will prove to yourselves that you belong here and that you can do this. And sometimes that's putting concrete resources in their hands. A lot of times I hear from adult learners, well, it's been so long since I did math. It's been so long since I touched chemistry. Well, how about we get some things in your hands, online resources, a lot of times free, to help you refresh those things. So when you step foot in that classroom, you've gone through all of these things and go, oh, I remember that. Oh yeah, I can do that. And it builds that confidence and makes students feel like, yeah, okay, I can do this. I do belong here, before they ever step foot in some of those more challenging classes.
Yeah, I think probably the hardest thing and the biggest thing is to ask questions. Again, from an online student perspective, knowing who to ask is probably the biggest hurdle. And so the questions don't get asked. We try to make ourselves, I think any of the folks on this screen can consider themselves a concierge service. And like Pam said, if we don't know the answer, we know someone who probably does, and we're going to give you a warm handoff to that person and get the information ourselves as well, because it's helping us to learn too. But I also always try to answer the unasked question. If a student asks me, like, what do I need to enroll in? I'm also going to tell them where I'm getting this information about what your remaining requirements are, how you can access that information, how you can find out more information about possible classes that you could take for that, how you're going to enroll, when you're going to enroll, so that you get into the classes that you want. So always answering unasked questions as well. But I know how difficult it is to ask the questions because it seems like everyone else already knows what the next step is.
And I think that's something that as advisors, we are constantly striving to be more intentional about, because we ourselves use a lot of jargon that's confusing. The institution is a difficult place to navigate. And so we're trying our best to, when we're talking to students, to not use that jargon. And I guess really to just echo what Jacqueline said, any question is a valid question. You are never wasting our time to ask a question. I can't tell you the number of students who in the middle of an appointment, or maybe it's after the appointment, they work up the courage via email to say, I'm so sorry I'm bothering you, but I have a question. You are never bothering me. My job is to answer questions. My job is to provide support. So always know that you can reach out, and know that asking questions is advocacy. That is how you advocate for your education and get the very most out of it. Someone who was a mentor of mine many moons ago in higher education said that one of the big things about college is never leave any money on the table. And while that might not actually be dollars and cents, that means use your resources. That means use your people power that you have. Crowdsource it, ask the question. So really feel empowered to ask questions. That's what we're here to do, is to support you in finding those answers.
I love that, Nancy, because I always say, hey, if you don't ask questions, I'm going to be worried about you. Do you really want me to worry? Ask your questions. Let me know how you are. Even if it's, I'm doing great, let me know you're good, so I love that. I would go on to the intimidating with our education programs that what we advise for in soon to be College of Education. A lot of our students are intimidated because they are hearing, hey, we want you to become a teacher, go into this program, go do school. And so they're intimidated because they don't feel they can do it. And they keep hearing 4-year, 2-year. No, stop saying 4-year programs, because it's intimidating. They are so, I don't want to do that. And I feel so out of place. I can't do that. And so sometimes it's very intimidating to try to even take that first step into coming and trying to visualize how this is going to work. And so again, I'm going to piggyback on kind of what I talked about previously, where sometimes we just visually write down, okay, you're in these classes, so you're week to week, this is, is this doable? And so sometimes visually seeing that sometimes helps. They're like, oh, I can do that. And I'm like, okay, if you can do that, let's see how that works before we go to full time, because they feel, oh, well, I have to do it in 4-year. This is a 4-year program. I'm like, or 2-year, because they transferred in so many. And I said, who said it was a 2-year? And I said, here, watch how easy this is. And I create a different plan that shows, hey, this is what you felt comfortable starting out with. Let's start with that. And I know Nancy talked about that. We can create as many options out, that you would like. It's a canvas. We can paint whatever we want. The face of the university student is changing. And so I get so many students that are like, yeah, I'm going to be the oldest person in there. And I said, do you want to know the average age in this program? It's 45. And they're like, what? And I said, yes. So, and sometimes it just is educating our students when they come in, again, going back to those misconceptions that they're hearing and helping them to visualize that they can do that, I think lowers the intimidation for them for sure. So I think that's where I would go with that question.
Thank you so much, Emily. Would you mind if we started with you again and went Emily, Nancy, Jacqueline, Aaron?
Go ahead.
All right. So how do you, and we've kind of talked about this already, but I think you guys are going to have some really good answers here. How do you, as an advisor, build relationships with your students beyond just academic planning? And why is it important for students to get to know their advisors as people?
So mine is a little simple. I start at tell me about yourself. I don't look at my computer. I don't have anything up. Tell me about yourself. It's an open-ended question. They can start with whatever they, want to start out with. And a lot of times they go into, I let that set the tone because again, I'm talking about just like maybe our first initial appointment, but I let that set the tone. I am taking notes in my brain, practicing active listening, making sure they know they're heard. Because again, sometimes it might have taken a lot to get into my office and talk to me about just where they're at. They may have zero support. They may have all the support in the world at home. But I start with that question simply just to get to know them, to build that relationship, and be able to make that connection. That helps me to better advise them going forward because I don't have to ask them all these questions, like 100 questions throughout the appointment, because I've heard they've told me about their 3 kids. They've told me about their night job and their day job. They've told me about all these things that they have going on, coaching and whatever it is. And so I've made note of that. And like Jacqueline, I mean, I think all of us have our way of jotting down notes and keeping track of that, just so we can help to make sure, we can give those acknowledgments. I had multiple times where students were nervous about a specific class. And so I made note of that. So that way, as we're going through that semester, I don't have to wait for any sort of report that we logistically get to check in on the student. I knew that was a personal struggle. They were taking an art class that they were putting away. I mean, now they technically can do a humanities, but back in the day, they had to do an art class, and they, for the life of them, did not want to do this art class, and they were very nervous about it. And so it was a simple art class, and I checked in, and they're like, actually, can I tell you about what I learned? And I was like, yes, tell me. I want to enroll in all these different majors when I hear students talk about things that they've learned. And so sometimes I get a lot of information from just, hey, tell me about yourself. What brought you here? And that helped me to build that relationship as we get going, because again, this is something they're doing, but that's not who they are. And so I think whatever we're enrolling them in helps complement that. But again, I like to get to know them. Sometimes we share, sometimes it's just the environment office too. If you have something in there, and I have all of my sports stuff in my office, and they're like, is that really your team? And so we get on this little tangent. Sometimes we split that into 2 appointments if we need to, because obviously what they're talking to me about is important to them. And so I think that's important too. Try really hard not to put people on a timeline, because I think in that initial appointment, that's what gets us away from being transactional, and students really appreciate that, especially the population of students that are adult transfer and online.
I want to go back to something that Erin kind of alluded to earlier in our conversation, and that is being a student is also being in a position of vulnerability. And it's important that we acknowledge that, and we hold space for that. As your advisors, for us to best serve us, we need to know what your dreams and goals are. We also need to know what scares you about those things and what things give you pause. And we can really only tap into that and have those meaningful conversations if you feel comfortable with us. So making those authentic connections, getting to know you as people is really that foundation. And because we care about you as people, making those connections for the most part comes pretty naturally. We naturally in our conversations are asking things like, what's your day look like today? Or what do you do in your free time? And it has become such a point of joy for me personally as an advisor to get to make those types of authentic connections. I'll share a brief story. I was working with a student, returning adult learner. Her and her husband were actually both stationed out at McConnell on the Air Force Base. And so in an attempt to establish some community there, they started a D&D group, a Dungeons and Dragons group. So my student and I were talking about this, and Erin, I know, is fangirling over there. Yes. And so one of the things my student did is she started for their campaigns to paint these really cool, super intricate miniatures. And so it became a ritual. Anytime she emailed me before she got to the crux of whatever it was that she had a question about, she would say, "Hey, Nancy, here's a picture of the latest miniature I painted. Isn't this the coolest?" We relish those types of moments to get to know you as people and to get to share in your victories, to get to commiserate when things aren't great too. We love people. And so we so value those opportunities to make those connections with you guys.
Yeah, I think there are definitely lots of ways that we try to make those connections just through getting to know you. One of the things I do, I make a joke that, in today's age of AI, I need you to know that I am a real person too, that I am not just some chat bot responding to your email. I'm a real person on the other end as well. So I give them background on me, and then that also gives us the opportunity when we learn about something that they're struggling with, we can share our own personal experiences as well. Our vulnerabilities open up that vulnerability in our students. But one of the reasons it's important to know your academic advisor and share about who you are as a person is because, believe it or not, there are opportunities out there that your academic advisor might know about or find out about later. Pam and I get emails from time to time saying, "Hey, do you know any students that meet these criteria for a scholarship?" And we're able to go back through our mental file of facts and those physical notes that I have and identify students that do meet those criteria and get them additional scholarships that they may not have gotten. I have been able to set students up with different research opportunities because a faculty member was looking for a certain type of student who maybe wasn't in their version of that class, but has experience in that area or is interested in that area. So knowing your academic advisor could open up opportunities that you literally would not know about if your academic advisor did not know you well.
The things that I have the luxury of being able to do that I know that not all of our academic advisors on campus can do because they have so many students in their programs is I try to check in on students usually 3 weeks into class and just shoot a quick email. "Hey, how are you doing? Tell me about X, Y, and Z." And I keep notes on students like Jacqueline said that she does. And so I'll go back and read, did Dale tell me anything last time that warrants following up on? And so I try to put something in there like, how's your repeat of microbiology going? Like, things like that so that it doesn't feel just like a form, like check-in. It's actually to them from me. And surprisingly, I get a lot of more responses from our adult students than I do like our freshmen and sophomores.
Oh, yeah.
There is something about as online and adult learners where you value email correspondence so much more. And I appreciate that as a professional that values email responses. So yeah, just regular or early check-ins when possible have been great.
Well done, guys. What advice would you give to an online or adult learner that makes them feel empowered to reach out and say, "Hey," to you guys just outside of regular peak hours? I remember Emily would go on vacation and take her laptop, and we'd be like, "No, you can't. No, for yourself."
But you know what? It was bothering me that I didn't know I knew that there was students that were going through something, and I said, it's actually going to bother me if I don't know that they started it okay, that they ended it, and I would say, I care. Like, come to me for anything. Come, we really care for you. And for my example, way back in community college, everything was scary and high anxiety until I got to his office. When I got to his office, and that's where I think advisors transcend it, no matter where you're from. I mean, a good advisor, that's what their job is. And everything was nerve wracking. Everything was scary until I got there, and he made it the easiest that I could, understanding everything without a mother there with me or a parent. And I have no idea what any of this means. I I think I want to be a teacher. What does that look like? You know, so just that we care. And again, it's academics in the title, but it's really just because I want to get you to where you're going. And usually I'm tied to a university, but other than that, I'm here for you to advocate no matter what. I'll go to bat for anything that my students need. So,
I mean, honestly, one of the things that I try to do is just make students feel comfortable sharing, which I think has been a big theme of this event today, is creating the space for students to share with us so that we can then share back. One of the things that I have told adult students is like, you were in this to finish. And if that means you have to email me at 3 a.m. to ask a question, do it. I'm not up at 3 a.m., but I will see it in the morning. But don't feel like you have to contact me during my hours. I will contact you during my hours. But when it's on your mind, you put it out there into the world. And like Nancy said earlier, you are never a bother. Like, you are here to accomplish things, and we are here to support you through that. And also, please come and share the good stuff. I feel like so many people think that you go to your academic advisor when things are going downhill. Now, we do recommend that. Please come and see us. But also, come and see us when you make a B on your chemistry exam because you busted, just you pounded out those hours to get that grade. Come and let us know that you were able to help your kid on their math homework because you're killing it in college algebra. Like, we want you to have a place where you can celebrate those wins when maybe you feel like there's nowhere else to do the little happy dance because you did it.
Okay. I just wanted to say, it's been reiterated a couple of times, but students feel like they're bothering us. And whenever a student emails me and is like, hey, I'm sorry to bother you, I have just one more question, I always respond with, you are never bothering me. One, I wouldn't have a job if you didn't have questions. Please continue to bother me. But secondly, it lets me know that you're doing okay. Having questions is a natural part of the experience. And if you don't have questions, I'm afraid you're just going to disappear into the mist. So please ask me questions. You are never a bother.
And I think that's something that we all as advisors are striving on, is doing those little things that will hopefully help you feel comfortable in reaching out. I know Erin mentioned this, but we really try to be intentional about our follow-up with students. So sometimes I'm in an appointment with a student and I know they need to go contact a resource in another area on campus. And maybe we do our best to make that connection and pave that path. But sometimes what I'll do is I'll put a note on my calendar and then I'll email them in 3 days and say, hey, did you get that sorted out? Were you able to talk to that faculty member that we had kind of discussed you meeting with? And we do care about the successes. One of the roles I play in our office is I am a pre-med advisor. And so we see students all the time that are interviewing for seats in medical, dental school, things like that. And I always tell students, please email me your interview dates. And then everyone who sees my calendar thinks I'm a crazy person because I have all these names at the top of my calendar. Riley is interviewing with KU today, and George is interviewing with UNMC. And I like to know what's going on in your life. And if I can see it on my calendar, then I can just send you all the good vibes, think all the good thoughts when I come in the morning. So yeah, any little thing that you want to share with us, we want to hear about it.
All right. I'm going to call an audible, and we've got 3 minutes left, 2 minutes left. So really quickly, advisors, just if you can, what's a personal story or experience that highlights the impact of an academic advisor's role on a first-generation student journey to success or an adult learner? And let's see, Jacqueline, you haven't gone first yet. Do it.
Okay, so one of my favorite stories is one of my very first students I ever had as an online learner. Her name is Terry, and Terry came to us when we open online learning to liberal arts and sciences. And I always joke my job is like a 1,000-piece puzzle without a box, because so many of my students come to me and say, I want a bachelor's degree. How do I do that? And I get to look through all of their transcripts and figure out the fastest path for a degree for them. And in Terry's experience, she lives in St. Louis, and she had originally tried to go back to her home institution of Mizzou and get her degree, and they wouldn't take her back because she didn't have math. So I worked with her. I was like, I know that this math is a very intimidating thing for you. Sorry, I'm trying to rush. She's a really cool person. But there were a couple of things. One, she was trying to graduate before her son graduated from college. And two, she had been passed over for multiple promotions and was told that the reason that she couldn't get those promotions was because she didn't have a bachelor's degree yet. So I worked with Terry. She actually ended up taking her college algebra in person at St. Louis Community College because taking it online was just going to be too difficult, too stressful for her without having that in-person experience. So we arranged it to where she could take that math at St. Louis Community College, got her Bachelor of General Studies degree in sociology. She loved it so much that she ended up also doing her master's degree online in aging studies at Wichita State, and now teaches our aging studies classes online. So she is one of my favorite stories. But if the advisors at Mizzou had been willing to work with her on her math and help her find an alternative route to getting that degree, we never would have seen her, and we never would have had the awesome experience that is Terry.
Okay, Stacy, if you have to jump off, please do so. I totally understand it's 4 o'clock, but I do want to give these advisors a little bit more time. Nancy, I feel like you haven't got to go first, so now you get to go second. So let's go with you, Nancy.
Ooh, I'll take it. The best thing in our jobs is when a student proves everybody wrong. I had a student I advised many moons ago. She was a single mom. She had a 2-year-old daughter, and she wanted to come back and finish her degree after being academically dismissed. She didn't have a lot of support, but really it just took her making a connection with our office and to have someone to talk to build her up, to know that you matter, and that you can do this. She proved everyone wrong. Not only did she finish her degree here, she finished a Bachelor of Arts in History. She went on to complete her master's degree in history. She adjunct for us for a while, so it was really cool when I was advising other students and we were looking at the schedule of courses. I could say, Andrea, I know her. Like, I'm fangirling over here. Like, I knew her when, and now she's no longer at Wichita State adjuncting because she's pursuing her doctorate degree. So it's just really cool to see that the little things that we're able to do, just one conversation can really support someone in accomplishing all that they are capable of, because you are, as online and adult learners, you are capable of so much more than probably you even realize that you are.
All right, Emily, you want to take a shot?
Yes, I'll go quickly. My story, I love the story. Again, I helped advise for the teacher apprentice program, which is all adult learners, transfer students. And my favorite story was a first generation girl that came in. She was very nervous to try to figure out how this was going to work in her life. She was a new mom, really didn't understand the education world, but was also working in the education system full time, also had a night job. We helped navigate. It was a long journey, but we helped navigate. She finally went to graduation. So we do a special pinning ceremony because it is a big deal for those students to graduate. All students. But during that celebration, she brought her parents. And again, they never had any sort of history with higher education at all. Lo and behold, 6 months later, her mother comes in to enroll in the program because her daughter inspired her so much. And again, these stories take my breath away sometimes, but she said, I've been working as a para forever just to make ends meet to help my husband's, job, so he doesn't have to work as much either. And so when she came in, she's like, I got to give this a shot because I love making a difference as well. And if she can do it, I can do it. And so just watching that inspiration, again, you guys are inspiring people when you don't know you're inspiring people. And so I love seeing that. And I loved having, you know, a mother just after her daughter graduating.
So I get to end this and hopefully, but not cry, to be honest. I think for me, like, I am the product of an adult learner, first generation student. Like, I am here because my mother did a hard thing for years. And I am so inspired by everything our adult learners and online learners do, because you're going to create family that, like my mom did. And so kudos to all of y'all for not only changing your life, but changing the lives of the generations that will come after you.
Erin, I'm not a crier, and you just made me cry. That I think that's
you
why
made all of us cry.
right. You know, I don't have kids, but I have my students and I have nieces and nephews, and I get to see it, and it's amazing. So to all of our online and adult learners, keep doing it. It's worth it. As someone who did it and have helped other people, keep doing it. Stacy, you're awesome. You're amazing. Thank you for being here. Is there anything you want to say or anything you want to add or any questions?
Yeah. I just wanted, I guess, be that mom for my daughter. She's 24 and she's working as a server, and I want to be that mom that graduates so that she'll go and follow that. Yeah.
What are you studying, Stacy?
I am actually just changed over to pre-social work. I've got to take a different biology class. The biology class I took at Hutch isn't what I need, I guess, or something.
Okay.
But yeah, so
Okay.
hopefully not this next semester, but either in the summer or fall. I don't know. But yeah, as soon as I get that class taken, then I hopefully will go smoothly into social work. So
Okay.
or
Well,
into the
Oh,
classes.
Stacy, you will.
yeah.
You
yeah.
got this, Stacy. And you know what? Your daughter's going to come and share a story about how she saw her mother go through
I hope
and
so.
finish a program, and how
I
she
hope so.
stayed up nights and weekends.
Correct.
And it's going to come.
She's gonna
I
see
hope
all
so.
of us cry.
Exactly. I'm
Be
going to
inspired.
show this to
This
her.
is being
Stacy.
recorded.
Stacey, thank you for
Exactly.
being here, and thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Ooh, yes.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you again all so much. We'll have this up and running. And I think we're going to take some, you guys all had such amazing quotes. I was a journalism major, right? And I'm writing down quotes and everything. So thank you all for being amazing. Have a wonderful weekend. And you guys keep doing the good work that you're doing. You make us all proud.